this is a home interview, Hewlett, New York, March 8th, 2004, 1:30 p.m. Interviewers are Mike Russert and Wayne Clarke. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
Harold A.S. Sandhaus, S-A-N-D-H-A-U-S. Date of birth, 4/29/16. Place of birth is in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Okay. What was your educational background prior to entering service?
Educational program was that of, I went to Franklin Marshall College in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and was then admitted to Johns Hopkins Medical School, where I remained there until 1941 when I graduated.
Okay. Do you remember where you were and your reaction when you heard about Pearl Harbor?
Well, at the time of Pearl Harbor, I was in medical school and also probably was serving my internship at one of the hospitals.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember how you heard about it and what your reaction was?
My reaction at that time was that we were leading into something that was going to be a very important war, and was something that to me was a very, we'll say, not a happy situation.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, you mentioned on your form that you signed up in 1940. Why did you sign up that early for the military?
Oh, 1940, I was still a student at Hopkins, and they came to me and asked whether I would be willing to eventually be in the service, and they would sign me up while I was still a student there, and I went along with what they were doing at that time with many of the students, not only in Hopkins but other places as well. Okay. They were actually looking for medical personnel.
Okay. Now, did you enlist or were you drafted into the Army?
Well, I was a member of this thing,
okay,
so
okay.
I was called into service.
Okay. Did you selected the Army then?
Yes.
Why did you select the Army as a branch?
Primarily, I knew that eventually things were going to eventually we would be going into war, and I had no objections to joining the Army, and I thought this, for a medical man, may have been the best for me to offer my service.
Okay. So when you went in, you were a doctor. Did you get any kind of basic training? Officer candidate school? What did they do with you?
Oh yes, they sent us to Carlisle, Pennsylvania, where we were a course up there for the training of medical personnel was usually 6 to 8 months, but they cut it down so that in 1 month we graduated with the same what could we say, the same experiences that the people who used to go there for 6 months. So they had a very rapid course.
Mm-hmm. So you became a second lieutenant out of this program?
I became first lieutenant.
First lieutenant, okay. Did you receive any kind of extra military training, or was that given to you in this program at Carlisle?
Oh, at Carlisle, Pennsylvania, they put us through a strict military indoctrination, which was done very well by very, very competent people.
Did you receive any specific training having to do with wounds and so on, or did they felt that you had that experience?
At Carlisle, this was primarily to give us an indoctrination on how to be a soldier. They depended on the fact that I graduated from medical school and spent a whole year in training at Lancaster General Hospital.
Okay.
So there was no specific training as far as what we would meet during a wartime medicine.
Where did you go after Carlisle?
Carlisle, after we graduated from there, they had a full graduation process. I was sent to what was then Camp Campbell, Kentucky, which is now Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
And what did you do there?
Well, there we were assigned to various medical units, and we were indoctrinated into the full army then.
How long were you at Campbell?
At Camp Campbell, now Fort Campbell, we were there, I would say, for at least 3 months. And as the war progressed, more and more were being sent out into active service.
Okay. When were you sent overseas?
I was sent overseas, I guess I sent overseas in about the latter part of 1942. I think that's about right, 42.
Were you assigned to a unit before you went overseas, or did you join a unit over there?
At that time, I was assigned to a very interesting unit. It was a gas treatment unit where there was always going to be the possibility that gas would be used, and we were told at that time, where we were going through our training with this gas treatment, that they had been informed that gas was going to be used if we invaded.
What specific training were you given against the use of gas, or for the use of gas?
Well,
one of our in England. The
we
specific
were in
training was
England at that time, and in England, because we were a specialized unit with 52 physicians, with all the special equipment that they had for the treatment of gas casualties. A unit was formed where we were sent out to the various units in England at the time to train them in the treatment and care of gas casualties.
Was there a fear that they would use like mustard gas like they used in World War I?
Our one fear was, and I'm glad you mentioned that, they had told us they would pour mustard on any landing point because mustard floats, and they would, the whole landing area where we would get out would be filled with mustard. And you must remember, when they landed, we had to walk in the water.
Now, what specific treatment was there for mustard gas?
Well, probably mustard gas was a very difficult one. Our special unit that we had consisted of a tremendous water system where we would treat gas casualties. The first thing that had to be done was to try to get rid of the mustard off of them, for example, with mustard. And we had a row of various types of showering equipment in a big tent where we'd have to find a stream. We would find a stream, and you would put in this tremendous rubber hose, we'll say, that had a filter on it, and you had to take the water out of that, and it would go, it had tremendous motor on this thing to pump the water out, bring it to the various shower heads where you would put a lot of people in, and you would try your best way to, first of all, to decontaminate them with just warm water. This thing heated the water and tried to get as much of the mustard off of them as they possibly can. This was our one fear. We had anti-lewisite injections and things like that could use against various other types of gas.
What actually would the mustard do? Would it actually burn the skin?
I'll give you one example. We went around, tried to train these people about these things, and our unit, and one of our things that we would tell them all about what could be possibly used, what would be used, and how to take care of themselves. And as a demonstration, I had taken a mustard gas in a container, and I showed them, I just squirted in a little mustard gas in a quart bottle, and I filled it up with water. And I asked for volunteers. This is a class that I'm teaching in the treatment of mustard. And I would usually get at least a dozen volunteers. These classes range from about maybe 20 to 50 people. I'd get a dozen of them come in. I say, I'm going to give you this diluted stuff, the diluted mustard gas here, and I will put it on your forearm, just a drop. And they all come up and I put a drop on. And then the shouting began, because the blister from that one diluted mustard formed a blister on every one of those that we tested. So it was a treatment, a unit that we taught them how to take care of themselves during any kind of attack, and also some of the nasty things that would happen.
Now, who were you training? Medics or?
Oh no, these well, primarily were the medics of any unit that was going to go in. Mm-hmm. In other words, we always have a group of medics, say for a group of medics for a company, you may have at least 20 medics for a company. And when it came to division unit, then you had a lot of medical, these are medical, not doctors, these are medical soldiers.
Yes,
they were
right,
treated in
right.
the treatment of, who would take care of the people who were hurt. and also people who were engaged with gas and so on.
Now, did your unit have a designation? What was it called?
Our unit was called the 103rd Gas Treatment Battalion.
How many members were in this?
Well, as I said, we had 52 doctors and all the rest of, so it was a complete battalion.
Okay.
And most of the were people who had been trained, the soldiers that were aid soldiers.
Did you have nurses with your unit also?
No nurses were assigned to our unit. None.
So basically it was doctors and medics that were...
Doctors and the medics. And with our special equipment to the treatment of gas casualties.
Now, where were you stationed in England?
In England,
You must have been based somewhere.
we were stationed in a place called, as they said, Wolverton, but it was Wolverhampton. Not Wolverton, but Wolverhampton.
Now, how long were you there?
We were there and traveled around, did everything and so on. And the most important thing was we were going to be one of the first units to land because of that fear of coating the whole waterway in France with mustard gas, which would float on top of it. So as soon as they declared that we're getting ready to invade, we were immediately transferred to the staging areas.
Now, with you going ashore within the first wave, did you receive any amphibious training at all, or?
There were no definite amphibious trainings for us. The only thing they told us was that we would be in one of the small boats where we would go directly up to the shore and we would be let out just to walk across there and set up our units. And all our units were to travel with us, this special equipment that we had.
Now, did you carry any kind of weapons, sidearms, or any weapons at all?
No.
Did you carry?
Medical men
did you wear an armband?
We wore an armband. Armband, and we had a big red cross in our helmets.
Was it Utah Beach or Omaha Beach you landed at?
We were in Omaha Beach.
Now, before you went in, you were in England for quite a while. Then, what was your reaction? Your interrelationships with the English people? Did you have much communication with the English people?
We had many, many, many friends in our Wolverhampton area that we were with, and we all our feeling was these were fine people who were going through a very nasty time, and they were very generous to us in the little bit that they had. At no time did I ever feel that these people were delightful and people that would do anything for you. We were so well taken care of with the little bit that they had. They would invite us over for, say, a few of us to one of the homes, and they would probably give us the last bit of food that they had. And we were always very cognizant of this, in that when we visited people over there, we usually took some of our food with us. But that didn't make any difference to them. It wasn't that they were looking the English were ever looking for any of our food. They were very, very fine people. We're in Wolverhampton, where we were located.
Now, you were with the first wave?
We got in. We were with the first wave.
Could you describe the landings and
well, what happened was, first of all, we were down waiting to take off. And the weather was bad. And they said, well, we hate to delay it, but if we delay it too long, it'll get worse. So we were delayed, at least as far as I can recall, once or twice. But then they decided, I think it was on the 6th they decided, December the 6th. We're going to go regardless of what the weather was. But fortunately, right before we were on our way, we got information. We had a new I guess it was in the form of it would be dispensed into the air. A new, how should we determine that? A new substance that, if we dispense it in the air, would cause immediate paralysis of all the people around there, and this was what we would use if they used any of the what they had planned on doing, say with the mustard.
So it was a retaliatory...
We told them this would be a form that they didn't know anything about. It was brand new that we had, that would completely incapacitate people. And we got a note from the Germans. You don't use yours, and we will not use our mustard. They were so frightened of this new material, which was a deadly material. And in fact, they just destroyed some of this. I was reading in the paper about 6 months ago that they had stored someplace. So it was very nice that the Germans said, we'll use no mustard, we'll use no gas, don't use this new gas that you had formulated. And apparently they were scared enough that they didn't use mustard or any of the gas. We landed.
Could you tell about your experiences on D-Day?
On D-Day,
Your unit went in anyhow.
oh yes, we were all set to go. We had to go there. On D-Day, it was a matter of our group staying primarily on the beach, but the rest of the outfits were all trying to get past that beach because there were still a lot of shells coming in, and we were there, and the only thing we were doing were taking care of casualties on the beach, but with no sign of any mustard.
You must have received an overwhelming amount of casualties, didn't you?
Initially, there were a lot, but we were not the only member. We were only 52 of us, but there were other groups that came over to take care of casualties, and as soon as we were able to move a little bit, one of the big evacuation hospitals got set up. And we used to help out at the evacuation hospital.
Now, on early D-Day and the days after, could you describe what kind of medical center you set up on the beach? Where did you set these up? How were they set up now?
As far as medical centers, nothing on the beach that we had set up. It wasn't until we got into a little bit closer in. that we were able to set up in the back hospital.
What
But
did you-
on the beach, all we did was take care of the casualties, try and stop bleeding, try to bandage, try and give them their morphine. We were all equipped with morphine to give shots of morphine.
Now, with your 52 doctors and the medics in your unit, did you all go in the same proximity? Were you all in this boat that came in together, the craft that came in
We
together?
fairly kept all together because we had regular medical equipment in addition to what we had as special equipment for treatment of gas casualties.
Did your unit take many casualties in the landing itself?
In my unit, we may have had just maybe one or two of my specific unit that had gotten into some trouble. Whether they died or not, we know that they were evacuated out.
Did all of your equipment make it to shore, or did you lose a lot of it?
Well, when we found out that we didn't need all this gas treatment material, when we found out about that, we left that over. We left it over. So that was a lot of heavy equipment that we had for us to set up these units to wash down these people. And wash down maybe as many as 1,000 every hour to get some of the mustard off of them.
Now, when you eventually set up these evacuation hospitals, how close were they to the front, and did you set up large tents, or what did
This
they look like?
well, the one that I was never in the back, but the back hospitals that set up were tremendous things that they set up as, once they got off the beach to get to a flat piece of land, they set up their units there. And they were very busy.
What did your unit do then?
Well, our
As the front progressed inland?
here we are without our equipment, and so we always were assigned to the evac hospitals to go and help out.
Okay, so you basically stayed right behind the front.
They were trying very hard to get through all. They wanted to get off the beach because there were a lot of guns that were trained in that area off the beach. So we wanted to get off to some flat land. And we worked very hard at getting off the flat land, to get to a flat land.
How long did you stay in, quote, combat at the front?
Well, first of all, because we were gas casualty, but we were doctors, we were assigned to every unit that went into action. They broke us down. We had 52 doctors that had to do something for them, so they sent us into units who needed doctors. And we would go in, and then we'd come back to our regular unit. And we'd go out again. This kept going on all the time. And we were going back and forth all the time, getting into units. The doctors were getting into various units that were going into real action. And that's what we did. And then, all of a sudden, an order comes down that you people who are, we were assigned to that 103rd Gas Treatment Battalion. It was a gas treatment battalion. A unit comes down, a note comes down to our unit saying, all you people who were not, this is the part that I always like to tell, we were active all the time because we were assigned to units that were going into action. We had 52 doctors. We were assigned. We'd come back and be assigned to another unit and be assigned again and reassigned. Then in order to come, you people who were not involved in any action are not going to be, now you're going to be transferred to a unit that is in action. So this is 52 doctors who have been, although being assigned to everything, being assigned to active units and getting shot at and everything, who on paper we are a gas treatment battalion and had no use. So we were all assigned to active units going into action. We didn't care because we had been doing it all along. So I was assigned to a field artillery unit where I was the only doctor. And from that moment on, it was among soldiers and men who were a delight to be with.
Could you, now you mentioned in the sheet that you had your teeth knocked out while working on a patient. How did that
Well,
happen?
what happened was I was with this field artillery outfit, and what we did, which was very interesting, tell these stories, but what happened was this field artillery unit was assigned to, I'm trying to think of his name, Patton's hair-faired lieutenant, I wish I remember his name, who formed a special unit.
Now you wrote here Colonel Polk. Was that?
It is. Where did you get that?
You wrote it down.
Oh,
Wrote it down.
yeah, Colonel Polk. Colonel Polk. And he had this unit, and he wanted a field artillery unit. We went with him, and he had the latest tanks that Patton had given him because he was Patton's hair-faired boy. He must have had a good 10 to 12 tanks. And we were assigned to go into an area that had not been captured yet. And a whole unit we have now, close to about 1,500 people in this one unit that are on the go. And about this little story here was I set up in my little hospital in a private house, and we had people coming in, and very rapidly, usually what we do, we set up a place where you can put the litters on. A horse, you put them on a horse, so you can work it level. But we didn't have time for that. So they kept keeping people in there coming in, and I would happen to be leaning over a patient, and what happened was somebody, a shell came in, and the shrapnel hit me in the face and knocked out my teeth. And that was it. But we went with this unit, and that was these guys were gung-ho. They used to go places with their tanks that I would never consider going, and they go, and they were a terrific unit, and we went in there, and we did what we had to do. What our primary purpose was to go through enemy lines just to see what the situation was behind the enemy line there. and not get into any trouble. Our unit got into a lot of trouble with it because of these people we were with their tanks. They did a good job, and then they pulled us back.
Now, were you assigned to Patton's Army?
I was Third Army.
You were Third Army.
I'm Third Army.
Did you ever get to see Patton himself?
Oh yes, I have pictures of him.
What were your feelings about Pat?
Really, I never got close to him. The only thing I know is that we were having been bombed, and I see him, and he's walking down the street. You don't give a damn about it. If they're going to kill me, they'll kill me. But as far as talking to him or doing it, he was just, you would see him and salute him, and that was it. But the people used to say, what did you say about Patton? His
guts are our blood or something like that.
His guts are our blood. Or our blood and his guts. Maybe his guts and our blood. I would see him, but as far as any communication with him, I couldn't get close to him.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned here to your daughter, it said in the Army you met many of the best and the worst of people. The worst seemed to have been high-ranking officers. What did you mean by that?
Well, you must remember, in the Army, they have a lot of people there have been trained for war. They want to go to the war. They want to do war. They want to do this. And when the time came, they were little kings in their little realms that they had. And the regular Army men were prima donnas. They were prima donnas, and we were civilians who were in the war, but they were the ones who liked to rule and liked to do and say things, because here they are. For the first time now, they have the upper hand. They can do, we're colonels and generals who can do whatever we damn well please. We're in control of this thing.
Did you ever have a shortage of supplies yourself? Hospital supplies, medical equipment?
There was never a lot of it there. We had our own little boxes of supplies that we had that we would use up very, very rapidly. But somehow we always managed to do with what we had. We had plenty of morphine. We had plenty of the essential medications that we knew we had to have. So, there was never any time that I thought, oh, if we only had this, we could do this. No, that we were well supplied.
Now, you mentioned you were involved in the Bulge. Could you tell about your participation there?
Well, that was an interesting thing, because we, at that time, we didn't know anything what was happening. This is when I'm with Third Army now. Knew nothing that was happening up above, and suddenly we get this information that a big unit of Germans had gone into the Belgium area there, and they're really creating havoc. And that's, if Patton ever wanted to hang his hat in anything, he decided he was get all our units that were available from the Third Army, and we're going to go up there. And we went there, and we were traveling. We didn't stop. We didn't stop until we got up into the area where the Bulge was taking place. And that's a place where, in order to set up various units, I always say that's when I joined what's the what?
101st Airborne?
The 101st Airborne. 101st Airborne. And we were in one area where most of them were located. So I claim that I made a jump with the 101st Airborne from the back of a 6x6 truck with this group of them. And we were up there where we were sort of enclosed in. We couldn't do anything, but we set up a very, 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 we'll say, fairly good hospital there. But our equipment had to be parachuted. All our stuff had to be parachuted to us.
Now, did you set up in private buildings, or did you?
What happened, the Germans were so sure they were going to get in. We set up in one of their, what they call their lagers, their places where they house their own people. And we used one of theirs, and that was about the only building that was intact, because they were so sure they were going to come in that they wanted to save their buildings. So we set up our place in the basement of this building and put big red crosses out on the highway there to tell them that we were actually a unit that was working. And they didn't shell too much of us in there. I don't remember anything landing on that place, but I said they want to save their place where they want to stay. So that was it. So we were up there, and we had, I'll never forget, had one tank that was making a lot of noise going around and around. I said, what goes on? He says, we want them to think we have a bunch of tanks up here. And that was very interesting, because he kept moving that one tank around and around and around and around. And so we kept getting all these casualties in this place. And when I tell you, we had over 4,000 casualties in this one little area that we were in, and no way to get them out. All they kept doing was coming in, but we couldn't get anybody out. And it kept piling up and piling up, and we were using this place that we have just to pile up the injured and the dead.
How many doctors did you have there at the time, if you recall?
We had there, working with me, I would say at least a dozen doctors and about 6 to 8 priests and regular priests and regular ministers, working all the time there, because there are a lot of giving last rites and all the things they had, and we had a missile up there where we had last rites, Catholic, for Islamics and whatever, and also for any Jews. we used to read off their when they were dying in there. And these ministers that we had, these priests, they were the nicest. I never saw a bunch of how they were so good to everybody. I mean, not just reading last lecture, but helping out and doing this and doing that. And I used to tell this one fellow, I said, enough now. You know, he'd set up stuff for intravenous and things like that. And I told him, you go in there and we had a big straw pile where people go in there and lie down and get some sleep now.
Now, how much rest did you ever get?
We got very little rest. Very little rest. We were very busy all the time. But every now and then, one of us would go and get maybe an hour or two of sleep. Then we'd come out. But these priests and all the rest of them, I've never been with such a... They did everything. You know, you asked them to do something, they would do it for you. And we had a nice relationship with everybody because we all knew, and we did know this, we were going to be killed. We all knew that. We all knew that. Didn't say it. We said it to each other, but we didn't say it. So what? We're going to all be killed. That's it. And then, lo and behold, they opened from Belgium into where we were in Bastogne in this field.
Oh, you were in Bastogne itself?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, it's right there. They opened a road and in come at least 20, 25 tanks. We're so hard. I'm so glad to see them. And we were able then to, and then a bunch of ambulances came in, and we're able to evacuate people from this place here. And as I say, we evacuated them for about 10 days. One ambulance would come, we'd fill it up, he'd go into Belgium. Forget terrible, I forget the names, where there was a big hospital set up in Belgium, American hospital set up in Belgium. And we would load the ambulances, and these ambulances for at least 7 to 10, 14 days kept coming in and going out, just evacuating our dead and also our wounded to this place in Belgium. And then we were able to get out and go up to Belgium, but we were doing all that. But the interesting thing is, in Bastogne, I didn't mention enough of this, planes were coming over, dropping medical. We could tell by this what the parachute was. Whether the parachute was, you had medical supplies, that was always a purple parachute. That was medical supplies. If they're going to send food, it would be another color. And our food consisted at that time, big loaves of bread, this big and that high, and big pieces, big things of salami. And you have never seen people enjoy cutting a big slice of bread and slapping a piece of salami on it. And they parachuted us that to our place. But that's all we had. That and coffee. I must say, we had coffee too.
Were you in Bastogne when the Germans asked General McAuliffe to surrender?
Yes! Yes! And we thought, what happened was the head man, I shouldn't be saying this, I shouldn't be saying, the head guy, the general, the full 2-star general, he was in Washington someplace, And McAuliffe was his second in command, and he was there.
Oh, that was...
I shouldn't say this. I will. This you don't put copy down. You don't copy down.
It's going to end up on film.
I know.
They're not around anymore
We
anyway.
can turn it off.
They're not around. Really, why? Because it's...
No, I'll tell you later on because
Okay.
what happened because the fellow said nuts.
You were talking about Maxwell Taylor, who was
Maxwell Taylor.
in command.
I better not say it. Of course, we all know it.
Well, turn it off. Let's hear.
All right, I'll
Okay,
turn it
we-
off for a second.
Just had to hear that.
Okay.
I kept notes though.
Oh, don't say anything about that because
Yeah. Now,
a
after,
lot of the people down there, they unfortunately they were under so much stress and strain and everything that anything you can do to get rid of this stress and strain.
now after the stress and strain on you, did you get any time off? Any R&R?
No, they took us into our place in Belgium.
Brussels? Was it Brussels?
No, it was a small name. What was that name? Aguirre or something like that. Agres or something like that. It was a small place where they had set up a tremendous hospital. And we were then, once we were able to get rid of into the hospital and everything, all the units went back to where they were before. And we're,
So you didn't get any real time off then?
no, there's no. Our time off was when we stopped, didn't have to do what we were doing. We were so happy when that happened.
Do you think with the trauma cases you encountered and so on, do you think the training you received at Johns Hopkins prepared you for this?
Of course it did. The training that we had in not only Hopkins, but also when we did our internship and things of that sort at the various hospitals, and with the help as well of with a lot of the older doctors in the various evac hospitals, which were the older doctors, were always very much of a help to all of us.
Okay.
Because you had physicians there. Let me just tell you a little story, which is very interesting. When I was in France, there, I was assigned to an evac hospital to help out. I was helping out. The head of the evac hospital was a physician who had been in the Army all his life. And who knew how to issue orders, but knew very little about medicine or surgery. But he also knew that he didn't know. And one time we were getting in a lot of casualties. I never did surgery, but we needed, these people were badly hurt. And they recognized that these regular Army doctors, many of them were not used to doing anything in the medicine or surgical because they were there was a career as a doctor. I was at this hospital, and a along comes a big truck, and out of it gets a major, 2 captains, and about 3 nurses, medical men. And I went over this, what it says, we just completed a surgical residency at one of the big hospitals in the United States and had been assigned over there. He says, we go around to the various units where we know we have to do important work. So, with that, this group comes in and he says to the workers around there, this is what we want this, we want that, we want this, we want that. We're going to set up the hospital. We're going to get to work right away. Remember, this is a major who is the anesthesiologist and 2 surgeons who are just captains and some lieutenant nurses around there. And they're getting these things, and this colonel of the outfit comes in and says, I'm going to assign what I want to be done here. With an expletive, this captain says, you get your ass out of here and I don't want to see you in here anymore. And the colonel says, I'll get you. I'm going down to headquarters right now. He went down to headquarters, came back a beaten man. I mean, he was still a colonel and everything. I was told, look, these men are running your hospital right now. These 4 doctors, and they did a terrific job. Specially trained in what they had to do and everything. And fortunately, we had enough people who were higher up who knew that certain things had to be done that way. But I'll never forget where he came back with his tail between his legs. They told him, they'll give the orders.
So he was more of an administrator rather than...
He was the head of the hospital.
Mm-hmm, right.
And he was going to assign who was going to do this and that. And I told him, you get out of here. And they worked for about, I'd say, a minimum of about 2 to 3 days. And they left. They were assigned to another place. So I say this only because we had people in command who knew certain things had to be done in a certain way, and in high command, and knew that some of the ones that they knew were in positions of power had to be held back because lives had to be saved.
Okay, why don't we stop? Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So after I had sutured his finger and everything, he felt he was indebted to me for something. He says, would you like to visit your brother in England? I said, gee, that would be nice because I haven't seen my brother now for about, there are only 2 of us, my brother and myself. I haven't seen him for about, now it's at least 5 to 6 years. He says, just wait. Goes in the office, comes out with big sheets of paper. He says, I've just arranged for air travel for you to go visit your brother in England. So I got in a plane And lo and behold, I'm in England. And my brother meets me, he says, how'd you do this? I said, I told him about the colonel and everything. I said, incidentally, I said, you know, I'm assigned to your outfit here because I don't want to take it off of my leave that I usually get. I said, in other words, I'm a member of your unit right now. I'm assigned to you. He says, great. So he signed me to he was a full colonel, my brother, at the Base Air Depot number 2, which is Doolittle's Hospital.
Oh.
Doolittle's Hospital up in England. And so I stayed with my brother for a while and everything. Here's what I said. Hello, my outfit may be planning to go home. I better get home or I'll be left up here. He says, fine. He says, your orders call for you to return with only air. And so I was shipped back to my regular unit. But that was only because I did a little favor for a good officer who was there but didn't want to be evacuated home.
Now, I noticed you were present at the liberation of Buchenwald.
Yes.
Now, were you aware prior to that of the existence of these camps?
We knew about camps. We knew about camps. And at Buchenwald, I went in with my outfit. Primarily, we went in when it was just liberated. And I went in, and my first duty was to they have these, what they call loggers, big beds lined with on. And my first duty, I had to separate the dead from the living that were in there. We went in and we liberated these people, and they were really, most of them very quiet. They were practically starved and didn't want to do too much. And we went in, my men would come in, they'd take the dead and put them up. In fact, I have piles of the dead that we lined up like cords of wood.
Pictures.
We have pictures of that. Lined up like cords of wood there that we used to bring them out. And the ones that were alive, we tried to explain to them that we were really liberating you. And it was difficult to get through to them. And I had, not only were there were a lot of political prisoners, there were a lot of other prisoners, and not all of them were Jewish or anything like that. And in fact, at that time, I spoke German very well. But I didn't speak Russian very well. They had a bunch of Russian prisoners there as well in Buchenwald. I didn't speak it that well. And I recall these people, most of them were just very blasé. It wasn't that, gee, we're liberated now. They were so sick and beaten and thin and everything. So I went into the German part. And I tell this because here I'm in the one part there with nobody's. So I go into the Russian part there, and my best Russian, I say, "Как вы почуваете?" to them, which means, how is everybody? And with that, the Russians came and began hugging me and kissing me and all sorts of things. And they kept asking me questions, and I was saying, yeah, nah, no, diet, nah, diet. I kept doing that, and finally I said to them in my best Russian, which I forgot now, so long, I'll see you some other time. And I left. The next day, the commander of the of Buchenwald comes to me. He says, they want the doctor who speaks Russian to come down there. But that was a horrible place. That was a horrible place. I went through the whole thing. The furnaces were still filled with bodies in there, all the furnaces. I have pictures of those. And one place, which we cleaned out very rapidly, was where they used to, I imagine, beat people or something. It was a big room, but it had a big hose and an exit on the floor, and blood all over the place. It washed the whole thing down. At least it was a nice looking place after that. I don't know what they did. They told me they used to torture people there. I don't know, but whether they were torturing their own people, but there was blood all over the place there. In this one area in Buchenwald. But it's a horrible thing, those camps. They were very, very bad what happened there.
Now, the other thing you mentioned, you went to a camp where the SS hospital.
That's terrible. No. What?
Only way you told me that.
Yeah. What happened was this. I was in Erfurt, and there in Erfurt, which is a big city, and I was with a government unit there. I was their physician of this unit of the American people there, and they said to me, there's a bunch of, in this hospital, there are a bunch of Germans who got themselves hospitalized, and once you go down there, and we want to know whether they have to be hospitalized, because we send them to a prisoner of war camp. But a lot of them did that. They would go to a hospital and complain about something. And the one thing that we were all interested in, we were, I don't know if anybody ever told you about the SS people, the Schutzstaffel. They were a tough, mean bunch. The Schutzstaffel, SS, and a lot of them went down there. And I went in there, and the first thing I said was, we're going to see how everybody is. And I'm speaking German to them. And I want everybody to strip down to their waist. And immediately they knew what I was after, because this SS group had themselves hospitalized there so they wouldn't be sent to prisoner of war camp. And they knew that I knew what was going on, because every SS has their blood type down there, this part of the arm. Go all the way down to the wrist, their blood type.
Oh, tattooed on?
Tattooed. Oh. So I, does this help at all? So I asked them to strip down. They knew what I meant. And in that whole unit there, I put out, I gathered up all the SS, the Schutzstaffel. I gathered all of them up, and I said, we're sending you to a special area, because they wanted to get the Schutzstaffel. The Schutzstaffel stands for the prideful unit, but they were the SS people who were there. They would kill anybody. They used to put them with the regular army. People used to tell me this, regular army, and if they saw somebody wasn't doing their work, they would kill them. Their own people. So what happened was, I gathered them all up.
How many were there?
In this hospital, I must have had about 40 of them.
Wow.
It was a big hospital, big hospital. Then they had a lot of other, they had Air Force, and I said, what we're going to do, we're going to get you to the nearest point where we're going to incarcerate you. So I come out with this whole group of SS people, and do you know what, did you ever hear of the French Maquis? The French Maquis?
I don't think that
The
term.
French Maquis were the people who were the people who were the French people who were always shooting at the Germans. There's the
Oh,
ones
the
in the back.
underground? They were the underground?
They were the underground, the
Okay.
Maquis.
Mhm.
And I come out with this group there, and I have a lot of soldiers helping me there. And this leader of the French Maquis, he must have had about maybe a dozen people with him there. He says, we'll take them to the camp. We'll take them to the camp. I said, yeah? He says, yeah. And he recognized. He said, we're right. These are the SS. Yeah, we'll take them to the camp. These are SS people. We gave them over to these French underground, the Maquis, French underground. Tough bunch. Tough bunch. I wouldn't want to be against them in anything. And they're left, and then in about, I'll say in about an hour or so, back they come and they say, are you any more? So I talked to my sergeant and said, what camp are we sending to? He said, this camp is about 40 miles away. They should put them in trucks to get them there. I knew what they did. They took this group of SS out, the Maquis, the French free. They shot the whole bunch of them. These are some of the things that you don't like to talk about, but they did occur. But they were tough people, the French Maquis. But these SS people were very, very... These were the Death's Head unit. In fact, I have one of their units upstairs. Death's Head was the cap that they wore. I told you a lot of nasty things, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Gee.
How long were you in the service? When were you discharged finally?
I was in service. When was I discharged? On
April?
was it April? About the middle of April.
46.
Yeah, 1946. April 46.
No, were you married at the time?
No.
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 We got married
No,
in January of 46.
No, I wasn't married, but I had a longevity. I had a lot of longevity for it coming to me, and incidentally, I'm one of the few people who have, for every 3 years, you get a stripe.
Yes.
I had about 4 of them. Because I was a member of the National Guard. Before anything happened, I was in the National Guard.
Okay, where were you out of? In Pennsylvania, in the Pennsylvania
In
Guard?
Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
So I had a lot of fogies.
Tell them how old you were.
Huh? No, you have to turn that off. When I joined, no, what happened is, it's not that bad. When I joined the National Guard, I was 14 years old.
Really? 14?
But,
That's got to be a record.
I was 14 years old. But, it was because they had organized a National Guard band. And they needed me as one of their players.
What'd you
They
play?
needed- I played the clarinet at that time. They needed me as one of their players. And the rest of the group, they were all older people. All I had was a whole bunch of fathers all the time, wherever we would go. We'd go up to camp and everything. I had at least 60 fathers taking care of me all the time. Well, then, what happened was, for longevity and thing, I said, here's my record. My record was available to them. And I had all these records. And I was in the National Guard all this time. I had about 8 years in the National Guard way before the war.
When you left service, did you ever make use of the GI Bill? I mean, you had all your education.
There wasn't
Did you ever use it at all?
anything that about the only, did I use the GI Bill to buy anything or?
Did you buy a house with the GI Bill?
I got the what's called through the GI.
FHA mortgage, didn't we?
I got the mortgage for the GI Bill, right? Through the GI Bill.
Yeah.
But I didn't go to any more schools or anything like that or anything of that sort.
Did you join veterans organizations at all?
No active veterans organization
Never have.
that I belong to. No.
Did you ever stay in contact with anyone that served with you or you served with?
The head of our unit that was in the last time, we always spoke to each other, and when it came time for me to get married, he came. Where did he come from?
Chicago.
Chicago. He says, I have to be there at your wedding. I will be there.
He had a very small wedding.
And that was a fellow named Frank McLarain, who was the nicest, gentlest guy, who was about 6'6" and built like an army. But he was one of the colonels in the outfit that I was in, and we always had a good relationship with. Had a good relationship with all those groups there.
But he didn't get to the wedding.
Huh? He come from Chicago, but didn't quite make the wedding, but he got to see us. He came.
He came to Williamsburg where we were on a honeymoon.
He got to see us.
How do you think your time in the military affected or changed your life?
First of all, being in the military is, for me, not something that has done anything to help my life. May have done that for other people, but it hadn't for me. But I would say this, being in the military, you meet the best of the people and you meet the worst. And there are plenty in the military that were pretty bad.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Boy, this was a long one for you, wasn't it?